And in that we are still unaudio supported, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Weiss, our executive director, and there are 168 hours in a week, and Sarah never tries to work more than 140. So without her effort, this event would have also stayed just a really neat idea that couldn't have come together. So thank you, Sarah, for your
Well, I just want to reiterate John's thanks and what a really incredible evening it was for those of you who were with us. Most of you were. Some of you brought student groups, some of you brought groups with you, and that night is one of the highlights I think that will stay with me in my career and my work. But the messages that Elie Wiesel shared that night about working together, about not remaining silent in the face of injustice, oppression, all of those things that he talked about are with us every day, and the work we do here at the center every day. And so while that was one magical night, and 6,500 people or so, give or take a few, that work lives on in what we do, bringing students here to mapping our tiers, sending speakers out into schools, training teachers. I see some of our alum of some of our teacher training programs. And we just hope that that magical, inspirational evening with such a special speaker stays on and lives on and continues. And we thank you all for being a part of it. And as John said, especially to our sponsors who made it possible. It was a big thing to put on, and Xavier in so many ways was so supportive, and we were lucky to be a part of it. I also, as a way to kind of remind us of the work we do and the reason that we're doing it, we've brought you all together this evening, not only to give you some food and some drinks and hopefully show a little bit more of what we do. Also, we have the opportunity to hear from a young man who's passionate about this, who's interested in studying this history, and not only studying the history of the Holocaust, but saying, how do we apply this history to today and to the world today? And I think if we can inspire young people like this who really have an incredible future and a chance to change the world, then we've all made the world a little better place. So with that, I'm going to introduce our speaker. You may have seen in the notification, it's a young man named Isaiah Reaves. He is now a freshman just up the road at Muller High School, so we're thrilled to have him up the way, but I've already suggested he become a docent for us. You'll understand why after you hear him. And he's, as a freshman, really accomplished a lot. He's spoken in front of many groups. He's sung. He's a wonderful singer. He's performed at the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center, at the Women's Tennis Masters, all over the place. He's gifted in that way. He's also a budding documentarian. He created a documentary last year that won second place in the National History Day for all of the United States. Wow. And by the way, as a side note, I don't know if he'll share it when he speaks, but when I talked to him about, well, what's he going to do when he wins first place next year, he told me that he's going to fly his mother, right, you remember, to Holland to see Anne Frank's act. So with that, and with his passion and enthusiasm for passing on the lessons of the Holocaust, I invite and welcome Isaiah Reaves.
Good evening, everyone. I would first like to give all honor to God, who is the head of my life. I would like to thank Ms. Sarah Weiss and the Center for Holocaust and Humanity Education for the invitation to speak to you tonight. I am truly honored. My name is Isaiah Reaves. I'm 14 years old and a freshman at Archbishop Moeller High School. To give you a little background on my life, my grandmother, who is here tonight, Mrs. Betty Daniels Rosemond, was one of the Freedom Riders. She was a member of CORE, the Congress of Racial Equality, in New Orleans, Louisiana in the 1960s. So as early as I can remember, I've heard stories of how she and other young people risked their lives when they got on buses, traveling a path that few would dare to travel to make the world a better place. I learned at an early age that freedom isn't free. Many people lost their lives in the struggle for equality, so that one day, a young man like me would not have to enter into the back door of a restaurant or drink out of a water fountain marked colored only. Mr. Wiesel recalled moving to America in the 1950s and touring the South to explore his new country. He said that he was outraged to see signs that said for whites only or for blacks only. He said what hurt him the most and outraged him out of everything even more was that it was the law to humiliate people. So I'm sure that everyone here will agree with me tonight when I say that God has brought us a mighty long way, but we still have a long way to go. Last fall, my 8th grade teacher introduced a book to my class called Night. I've always had an interest in learning about history. I had studied the Holocaust and watched several documentaries, so I was glad that my class would be learning about such an important part of history. Before I read this book, I had no idea how it would change my life. There I was, a 13-year-old boy reading a book and crying. I was so moved, so touched, so angry, and in total shock. How could something so terrible happen to anyone, anywhere, ever? I can't even begin to fathom how 6 million men, women, and children could be brutally murdered. I thought about my life and how I'm about the same age as Mr. Wiesel when he was taken from his home, from his security, from life as he knew it, placed in a cattle car, and on a train ride to hell. I thought to myself, could this happen again? This was not that long ago. While I was doing some research on the Holocaust, I came across an article that read, Adolf Hitler, one of the greatest leaders of all time. I was outraged. When I think of great leaders, I think of Mahatma Gandhi, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., Elie Wiesel, peacemakers. Hitler believed that he was a part of a master race. There is no such thing as a master race. There is only one race, and that's the human race. We are all created in the image of God, and whether you believe that or not, one day we will all stand before God and answer some questions. Did we love everybody? Did we follow his commandments? Will the world ever learn? The Word of God says, whatever is has already been, and whatever will be has been before, and God will call the past to account. No matter how painful and unpleasant the past has been, now is the time to remember. We must not forget the days of darkness. When I look at today's society, social injustice is still prevalent today. Discrimination, oppression, racism, classism, sexism, ageism, ableism, the list goes on and on. It seems as if our world is overflowing with evil and out of control. Just turn on the television, open up a newspaper. It seems as if there is no hope. And that's just what the enemy wants us to think. But the devil is a liar. The Word of God says, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. So as I stand before you tonight, my message is that evil and injustice will not prevail forever. God is still in control. Sometimes, when we go through trials and tribulations, it may seem as if God is far away. But I know that no matter what happens, no matter what situation I'm in, God is still on the throne and worthy to be praised. I want to take a moment and look at the word night. Night is defined as the period of darkness between sunset and sunrise. Mr. Wiesel recalled that some of the darkest moments of his life happened at night. When we are going through the nights in our lives, sometimes it seems as if they will last forever.